Hi, thanks for watching this video. I want to give you a jump start on Minor Project 1 as some folks have already started, and I hope to help you avoid wasting much time with this. A lot of times students overcomplicate this, so I hope that this video will help you make quick work of this assignment. To get started, we really need to focus on an instrument, a survey, a scale, any of those types of things. So I want you to brainstorm. Is there a specific theory that you might be interested in? Or is there an instrument that you're already interested in? We need at least 2 instruments for this assignment. Usually you'll need 2 instruments for each hypothesis. So in this case, here I'm showing you the Authentic Leadership Questionnaire, which measures these 4 items: self-awareness, transparency, ethical, moral, and balance processing. And then another instrument that measures trust in teams. So you'll see down here, self-awareness, transparency, ethical, moral, balanced processing. Again, those are the 4 subscales in the ALQ, and the scale here measures trust. So over here you see the dependent variable is measuring trust, okay? And I like to list these out as the independent variable and the dependent variable so that we can keep this straight. Sometimes those terms get a little bit confusing. So the independent variable, those are the ones that change. And then the dependent variable, that's the one that would remain consistent unless something is having an impact on it. So I like to think of the dependent variable as the one, it depends as to what happens with the independent variable if the dependent will change at all. Otherwise, it will remain constant or consistent. So hopefully that helps. Again, you need at least 2 scales to write your hypothesis. We are looking for 10 research questions and 20 hypotheses. And some people, like in this situation, we have 4 hypotheses because there's 4 subscales. So that's what I usually see, is actually more than 20 hypotheses. If you're writing 10 research questions, it's very, very possible you'll have more than 20 if you're using all of the subscales in the instrument. Okay, so maybe you're wondering, how do I find these scales? Well, I want to give you several, actually, resources. One is a book, and I don't expect you to go buy a book. Please keep that in mind. There's no need to go buy an extra book. But this book here is an option. You could probably just Google it and see what's inside. It has lots of different examples of instruments that you can use. Another one similar to this is this Handbook of Tests and Measurements. That one has lots of different measurement tools all in one place. Now, I've made several lists, so this may make it even easier for you. These are scales that I have used, and so here's the Employee Engagement Index. It measures simply employee engagement. The Fruit of the Spirit scale has 9 variables, so you would have at least 9 hypotheses with this one. The Minnesota Satisfaction Questionnaire has a lot of subscales, but you can actually just roll this into one and say job satisfaction. The Organizational Commitment Questionnaire is simply organizational commitment. The Organizational Spirituality Value Scale, again, simply spirituality. Religious commitment, simply religious commitment. The Servant Leadership Assessment Index, this was written by Dennis M. Bacarnia. So Dr. Bacarnia is one of our professors here at Regent, and he will likely be your statistics professor with the more advanced quantitative statistics classes. But this document here will go through each and every one of the subscales. It will talk about the reliability and the validity. This is actually a very similar document, if not the document, that you will want to use for Minor Project 2. And so it goes through all of these. Here you'll see each one of the subscales. So with this example, you'd have at least 7 hypotheses because you'll want to include all of these items. Okay. Let's see. Here are a few more. So spiritual leadership scale measures 3 items. Spirituality at work scale also measures 3 items. So you'd have at least 3 hypotheses for each one of these. If you're interested in ethics, I have a few ethics scales. Actually, the Fruit of the Spirit scale I used on the previous page. It could also be used for ethics. Here are 2 other scales. There's plenty more that measure ethics, but these are just examples. The entrepreneur scale, these are several. You'll see here each of the subscales. So if any of these interest you, you could simply go to the Regent Library and pull up, for example, moral entrepreneurial scale with Yurtsever and see what these subscales are talking about, and then write your paper for minor project 1, including what your research question would be, and in this case, 4 hypotheses. Authenticity is another example. So you can see you pick a topic, and then you can find the scales and do some research to see what are these scales. This one here I found interesting, the individual authenticity measure at work, measuring 3 items. But all of these are very interesting. It would just depend on what you're trying to measure. So I want to show you then what a paper would look like. Okay. Now I've seen several different variations of this, but here's an example. Oops, here's an example of a paper. Nope. Bear with me, please. Here we go. Now this paper actually, we talk about research questions and hypotheses, and then we get into some of the specifics. So this actually was my study, and then the student takes my study and furthers it to really expand, does religious affiliation influence job satisfaction and organizational commitment, where my original was more about religion and spirituality. I was not looking specifically at specific types of religions, but then they break this down into the specific religions for the independent variable, with job satisfaction as the dependent variable here, and then org commitment as the dependent variable here. So you'll notice that H1, all of the H1s, A, B, C, D, E, relate to job satisfaction. And all of the H2s relate to org commitment. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an example of what a paper could look like. We're looking for a little bit of verbiage up here about why you're interested in this, maybe a previous study, or a little background as to what your research question is about. Then present your research question and present your hypotheses. So for each little section, we're not looking for very much text at all. In this case, he was able to write, oh, let's see, 10 hypotheses and a nice research question with 295 words. So it's not all that intense. Again, you want 10 research questions and at least 20 hypotheses. So I hope that helps you with this assignment. I've also sent you the hypotheses examples from Dr. Winston and hypotheses examples from Dr. Bacarnia. Let's see. Let me pull that one up too. What both of these are showing you are just some examples from dissertations. These are Regent University dissertations. So these are tried and true research questions and hypotheses. It gives you the reference of that dissertation. Here is the example of their research questions. Here are the examples of their hypotheses. So obviously you don't want to just reuse their information, but this is designed to give you examples. Again, though, my preference is when you're doing this to use independent variable and dependent variable within your actual language so that it's very clear what you're trying to state here, that altruistic love is the independent variable. That's going to have the impact on job satisfaction. Okay? If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. You can always send me a draft of your paper early, or we can schedule a time if you're still having some difficulty with this assignment. Thank you. Have a great day.